that Suzanne is conducting our special program for the first Thursday of the month, which happens to be April Fool's Day. And surprisingly, we didn't have any jokes today. So at any rate, we kind of announced this prior. And so Suzanne, tell us again what the subject is.
So it's berries, balls, and baubles. And it's how to create round things with or without depth on your canvas.
All right, take it away, Suzanne.
Okay. So some of you might have seen my advertisement for it, which showed 3 little things. This one is actually 3D. It sticks up about 3/8 of an inch. This one is a padded satin stitch, and this one is a rounded Rhodes stitch. So I'm going to show you how to do all 3. Oops. So, and I'm going to do them in a different color. So the padded satin stitch, many of you know how to do this, is you lay padding, and often I'm doing it in Persian yarn, but that's because I decided that the easiest way to make it visible for everybody was to use number 7 plastic canvas on a frame. And I think it's a little easier to see than number 13 canvas. So you lay your threads, and when you're padding, when you're padding, you go 1 in from the edge so that there's like a slight circle around it. I was also looking in my stash like, oh, I must have a canvas that I can demonstrate this on. And I have a lot of dog canvases right now.
Well, you have a lot of dogs.
Yes, I have a lot of dogs. So this is the padding, and you can usually do padding in something that's a different thread from what you're going to stitch over top. Pearl cotton is great for padding, but you can also do it in the same thread. And then you stitch your satin stitch over top. And again, it's one hole outside of where your padding is. Now, understand, I am doing this on number 7 canvas, so it's not covering quite as well as it will cover on normal canvas. And I didn't make it as round as I could have. It's a little more diamond shaped. But when you have the object painted on your canvas, it's easier to create the shape that you want. Now, if you want to make it a thicker pad, you can go back over it and do another horizontal pass, and that will give you more depth.
Suzanne, can you try with your thumbnail to turn it around? You know what burnishing is? To rub your fingernail back and forth across it. It'll sort of fluff the fiber. That's a nail. So do the top of the nail and rub it back and forth like it was a brush. No?
Yeah, it won't on this thread. I didn't ply.
No,
I didn't strip the thread ahead of time. Yeah. It would work if you were doing it on regular canvas.
Uh-huh. There's something in embroidery called burnishing.
Yes.
No. That they do use with a wooden tool, but
Another thing,
But Persian wool is used as one strand. Burnishing is usually if you're using multiple strands.
Well, with
Well,
cotton.
this I'm using the full 3-ply of Persian. Just because it's number 7 canvas.
Yeah, but look at how beautiful that turns out. It almost looks like a little bee skep.
Yes.
Yeah.
there you go.
Perfect.
You
So
could
that's-
also double up on the padding and create a curve effect.
Right, you could put extra padding down the center so that it stands up more.
Even more, okay.
So that's
I did
padded.
that.
Nice.
I did that for columns on the rotunda at UVA, and I did a graduated thing, and it worked really well.
Suzanne,
Mhm.
can you, when you mention doing one strand down the center, would you pull that super tight so that it accentuated the padding more on either side?
So if you're doing extra padding, I would do this. I'll make it smaller.
It's more effective when you pad going up and down, and then you have something going.
So
Well,
this is just minor padding. So it's one on each side, and then I'll pad multiple times in the middle. And then and you see it looks a little rounder.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. I like that.
More domed, not rounder, but it's also rounder because of the shape I made. So you get a higher dome in the center.
That looks fabulous.
I like it.
So then I have to thread another needle. Then a lot of you know about rounded Rhodes or Rhodes stitches.
Yes.
And the rounded Rhodes is a wonderful stitch to do any like berries and balls and baubles. Also for like a beach ball, you could do this, but do half of it in one color, a stripe in the center, and half in another color, and that would give you the look of a beach ball, like in a Christmas stocking Santa's bag.
Mm-hmm.
Then for the rounded Rhodes, I'm going to do a 3x3 Rhodes. Oops. Sorry, I counted wrong. And I got stuck with.
Take your coffee and pour it on top just to start the day off right.
Do bears have black noses or whatever color the bear is?
Well, the little the skin part is black,
Okay.
as opposed to the fur part. Now this one is slightly off shape because it's a 4x2, but it's an elongated bauble. This will be a rounder bauble. And there's lots of books that have these stitches all numbered. And so you have a nice round look, and it is also domed. If you want to do a second pass, you can do a second pass and you create a higher ball.
Right.
Now, the next one is thanks to Caroline. I put this over. And it's this, which is the raised cup stitch, which is used in embroidery. And there is a wonderful video on Pintangle on how to do it, which I will tell you, but I'll show you how it works. So you create a triangle. And what you're going to do is to use the triangle to create a series of knots that do not pierce the canvas, but go over the foundation stitches of the triangle. And this one's a really interesting stitch. So you go underneath without piercing the canvas, you put the thread over top of your needle, then you put the thread underneath the needle, and you've made a knot, and then you tighten the knot around the foundation triangle stitch. And you do, depending upon how large your triangle base is, this one's over 5 threads, so I'm going to do 3 knots across. And there is no particular formula. It's just what you feel is going to look good.
You just need to fill up the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I'm using fairly thick thread. But you put the thread over the needle, and then you come up through the round hole, the loop created when you put the thread over your needle. And you're not piercing the canvas. You're just going underneath the triangle stitch.
Hello.
Okay. And you do it all the way around.
Wait a minute.
And it doesn't matter if it's a little slightly messy, because you're going to do another row.
I can't figure out how to mute myself.
No, it's almost like a button.
I can talk to you tomorrow.
It's like a buttonhole stitch on top of this triangle.
Wait to see
Okay.
what you were doing. And
Thank you.
okay, this will be. All right. When I figure it out, I'll call you. No, we can just talk tomorrow. All right, tomorrow's good.
And so now I've done 3 knots down each side. So I have 3 sets of knots, kind of smooth them out a little. Next one, instead of going underneath the original foundation thread, I go into the knot that's on top of the foundation thread. And this causes it to be raised because you're doing a row.
Is it between or into?
It's well, it's sort of between, but it doesn't really actually matter. I tried it both ways, and I spent so much time figuring out what between was that I realized that it looked the same if you went into.
Where did you discover this stitch?
I was online poking around trying to find a berry stitch, and somebody said something about Brazilian. What did I tell you it was called? I forgot already.
Raised cup stitch.
Raised cup stitch, which is an embroidery stitch. But this girl had taken it further and just closed the top up.
So if you were doing this in a less dense thread or a thinner thread, you would have like a whole raised edge. It would be a great center for a flower.
Mm-hmm. It looks like it could be the flower itself.
It could also be a flower itself. And it stands up. I don't know if you can. You see how it stands up from the canvas?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then you keep going around. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble because I'm trying to get underneath the phone camera.
Oh.
It's a lot easier to accomplish without something over top of you. And then you do the next row. And again, you go at the stitch in between, or if you can't figure out which stitch is in between, you go on the top. And traditionally, I think you just do 2 rounds. But if you're making a berry, 3 rounds works really well. And your third round can be just 2 per side.
The original one said that you could, the cup itself, you could put a bead into.
Yeah, if you're doing a thinner fiber, you could put a bead in the center of the cup.
Right. Or if you're doing thinner thread, you could actually bead the thread as you work, but I haven't tried that yet, so I can see how that could be a problem.
Yes. And
Suzanne, oh, go ahead.
Oh, just keeping it I'm sorry, Carolyn, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to comment that I did a smaller version of the cup stitch on an eyeglass case where I didn't want to do French knots and I wanted something that would be pretty durable. So I did just 1 row of the
that would be
over the triangle. And if the cup inside was kind of vacant, I just stuck inside of that a French knot or a double French knot to bring height to the whole piece.
Yeah, hold it up as well too.
And then you just like go through the top to pull them together so that you get the rounded berry.
Oh, wow.
And then sink the end through the center.
There you go.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah.
And whoops. And so then you can see how raised it really is.
It's really
and
cool.
It looks a lot like a raspberry. But it would also work, depending on what thread you use, it would work well for holly berries. It could work for, I think about the Vicky, I'm sorry, my gooseneck thing just came off. It could work well for like the Vicky Sawyer berries that you see on the birds.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But whoever has their television on, please mute themselves. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the padded satin stitch, a rounded Rhodes stitch, and the raised cup stitch.
Awesome.
Three fun ways to make round things on your canvas.
So I have a question. So when you're doing the cup stitch, I understand the principle of continuously knotting through the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously you would not have to pull that taut to bring the top together. You could leave it open.
You can leave it open. And in fact, I can do another one where I show it left open.
Because then it would kind of look more like a little flower.
Right.
Yes.
And people are talking about the embroidery said that traditionally a bead would go inside that would sparkle. So
We like beads.
yeah.
So you make the triangle base, and I'm making a smaller one because this would be a great flower center. Oops. I got stuck on my needle minder. And because this is a smaller one, I'm just going to do 2 stitches per side. Pull them tighter. Now, for your very first one, I wouldn't do it on your canvas where you want it. I would practice somewhere else first because it's a little hard to get the stitches even.
Yeah, so I've got one over here on a cat canvas. It doesn't belong there, but you know, it was my scratch paper.
Yeah.
Suzanne, what was your padded stitch called? The yellow one?
Padded satin.
Okay.
I mean, it's nothing unusual or difficult. It's just another way to create a berry, a ball, or a bauble.
Yes.
Oh, cubes.
Okay, you just go underneath the foundation triangle stitch, put the curve of the thread over the needle, and then pull through to knot. And this one, it has 2 on each side. It's a smaller footprint, and it would create a great flower center. If you just sink it down. And there you just have a little round.
Oh, that's really cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can put a bead in the center.
Mm-hmm.
You could do a big French knot in the center. And
Yeah.
it has some depth, but not nearly the depth of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But that's the more traditional raised cup stitch.
Mm-mm.
Okay, anyone else have questions? Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties.
One more. So I've seen a technique to create like a boysenberry where you would take one of these bobbly kind of stitches and you put beads on top of it. So it makes it look like a boysenberry.
You could easily do that once you make one of these big puffy raised cup stitches. Then you could use a single strand of silk and attach beads around it.
That would be really pretty.
I
That
saw
would be really
somebody
cool.
was in that, while I was looking, as she was taking that underneath part, she would add the bead and pull the knot, and then she'd go under and add the bead and pull the knot. So there were beads all along as she stitched. It was
Wow.
It was a boysenberry when she finished.
Well, I think Sandy Jenkins, who, now we're talking ancient history, used to do that. And it was really interesting how it turned out on the canvas because it kind of looked real.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna try that. I'm just pulling out beads.
Suzanne, where are your dogs right now?
One is asleep at my feet, and I think two are looking at the dinner that I've already prepared that they don't get for another half hour. Because
And
they're
where's the fourth?
probably in bed.
I thought I was so pleased to see her rubbing her back in the grass.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
Yes, Kimberly, my oldest dog, is 12, and she spends most of her time asleep on my bed.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm just gonna try this. Now, oh, that's weird.
Now, is that the,
This is Fireline beading thread.
yeah, thank you.
I don't know what I'd do without that. It's so much easier to thread.
And this is my accoutrements bead case. This is sticky and this is magnetic.
And if you rinse the sticky, it'll get sticky again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because mine is not very sticky right now.
Uh-oh.
Oops, I got to change glasses. On the number 7 canvas, I can use reading glasses, but adding beads to this berry, I can't. Yes, see, it's looking boysenberry-like or raspberry.
Yeah.
Are you going in the knot?
Yeah.
Are you stitching between or in the knot?
Between.
Between, okay.
I don't think it matters.
All right.
You want it to kind of be more on top.
Yeah, right.
Carolyn, are you doing berries?
I'm going to be. I have a whole bunch of holly berries.
So if you did this in this wool, it really looks more like a raspberry or a boysenberry. But if you were to do it in something smoother or in a silk lame braid, it would look a lot more like a hollyberry.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, so we're getting you'd have to put a lot on, but it would definitely look like a berry.
Thanks.
Does that make sense to people?
Fun.
Yep.
Color
good.
fun.
Well, probably less if you were using a smaller fiber. I mean,
Well, yes.
Yeah.
If you were on a number 18 canvas using 4-ply of silk, you wouldn't need nearly as many beads.
Right.
Does anyone else have a question?
No.
So for the round roads, what if you have something that's sort of should be around roads for most of it, but it gets chopped off by another design element?
Okay, so you can do.
It's too late for me because I did something, but anyway, I'd like to know the right way to do it.
Okay, so if it's like, so if it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you're chopping it off at the middle. So you would pretend that you, like normally you would go there,
Mm-hmm.
but you can go shorter.
Okay.
And you can either,
Okay. Somebody's dog is.
That's mine.
so you can create a half of one,
Okay.
Okay.
or you could do a 3/4 one or a full one.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, that looks cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you did? Who was it who asked?
This is a half of, well, it's almost a half of one. It's a little more than half.
No, I was just wondering who asked. Who asked?
I did, Alice.
Alice.
And what did you do, Alice? Something like that?
So it turns out there was this nice pink cheek on a snowman.
Mm-hmm.
And first, it's kind of interesting because the first thing I did was the padded satin and I didn't like it. So I took it out. And then I decided to do a round Rhodes, but I truncated it on the left-hand side because of other things that were coming up. So I made it as round as I could on one side, and then I just shortened the other side.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Perfect.
And like in many stitches, if you look at the graph of the stitch and hold a piece of paper over the part that you don't need, you can tell where your stitches are going to go.
I forgot about that. You guys have reminded me of that before, but then I forgot.
Yeah. It works on almost any stitch, although it's okay. So this is the Rhodes stitch in Stitches to Go.
Okay.
And
Love
if you
that.
wanted to do part of it, you would take something and cover up the part that you don't want to do, and then just do those stitches.
Oh,
That's clever.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very clever.
So that way, sometimes when you have a border or an edging or a design element where suddenly there's leaves,
mm-hmm.
you need to make a partial stitch. And that works with lots of stitches. Can also help you, like if you're trying to do something like the staggered cross, which is not a difficult stitch, but sometimes if you're looking at it, you're like, but I only want to do this. Then you can make it so you can do that.
Really
or
clever.
or that, how am I going to get it so that it's partial? And that works for almost any stitch for to figure out how to compensate. Now, not that compensating will be easy, but it works in helping you do that. Anybody else have questions?
Well, on the padded satin, so obviously you wanted to use that on an area of the canvas that you're trying to feature. It wouldn't, obviously,
Yes.
you're not using that on something that's going to the background. So,
Right. You don't want to use that on something that's supposed to recede to the back.
yeah.
But you
So-
also want to do it on something to give it dimension.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be completely featured, but part of a larger whole, but it needs dimension.
Well, and I mean, you don't have to pad. You can just do a regular satin stitch. I mean, okay, so where are we? So like for this one, wait a second, I'm having some movement issues here. Okay, so that stitch is padded, but if I want it to do the same stitch next to it, oops, well, it doesn't help when you drop your needle.
Dog doesn't eat them, does he?
No, but once I found one stuck on, well, my husband found one stuck in Wendell's tail. He was quite upset.
Oh, oh no. Wendell
Wendell
or your
didn't see-
husband?
My husband, Wendell didn't care. So you can just do the same stitch without padding, and it'll just be flatter. Oops. Oh, I am having technical trouble here. And you can even do 2 passes so that it covers completely, but then it will be flat. It won't be raised like the other one.
Right.
There we go. And this is even more raised.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I missed part of your thing when you were doing the blue just below the yellow. What is that called? That stitch? Yeah,
Oh,
those
this is the
little-
rounded Rhodes. And
those
I
little
just,
ones. Yeah.
yeah, and I just redid them in red.
Oh,
This
okay.
was, someone asked how to do half a one, and then I did a full one.
Okay, so the blue ones that you have on there, they're just. I mean, what's
They're
that
just,
little one?
they're just a slightly elongated version so that it's more oval.
Okay, yeah, because the one to the right, to the far right, yeah, that one. That one is over. Yeah, that one looks really like a little ball or a little,
Mhm.
or I mean, a little.
And this one looks really ball-like, this little red one.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the
one.
same thing. They're just,
That's the same thing.
But
It's
they're
just
not-
how many holes you go over.
and it's called Rhodes or something. But you're
Yes,
gonna send the
this
stitch-
is the rounded Rhodes, and what makes it rounded is that in a regular Rhodes stitch you would go corner to corner in a square, but
Oh,
in this one you leave the corners empty
yeah. Okay. Okay.
in the rounded stitch.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, that's yeah.
Suzanne, when you're doing these stitches that are padded and bubbly, do you increase your ply on your fiber?
Well, it depends. You can increase your ply. You could use a flatter thread like a neon raise, or you can make multiple passes. So often it is difficult to work with extra ply on canvas because it doesn't go through smoothly, and it's much easier to make a second pass.
Okay.
Ah.
You know, you can
And smoother.
also do a Jessica and then put something raised in the middle of it.
That's true.
Something that I did on an 18 mesh stocking when I had a whole bunch of berries was I did a Smyrna cross and then I did the rounded Rhodes over the Smyrna cross.
Oh,
And that's a great idea because then it would raise the center.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it was easier because I was stitching over some other things, and it was just, you know, a suggestion that what's his name, Don Lynch, had posted at one time.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. Here, I'll try that.
It's just that Smyrna crosses use so much thread, but it worked in a pinch.
Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't have to do it in the same thread, right?
Right. I did because I had, I was just doing them continuously on a garland. But yeah, doing a Smyrna cross and then doing the Rhodes over it really punches up the center.
Another trick that I learned in one of Linda's seminars was to use felt. You can use a little circle of felt, or you can cut the felt to any shape you like and then stitch over that to get a nice satin finish.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Isn't that what happens in the rooster? Not rooster, that turkey everybody did?
It also happened in the lemons that Mary Legale did.
Right, okay.
So the lemons, when we kitted that, we kitted it with extra fabric that was used as padding.
Well, and she also did the oh no, I can't remember what it's called, but the lemons themselves were stitched on linen or muslin.
You're right. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, it was stump work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so see how nice and fluffy that one is with the Smyrna
Yeah.
cross in the center?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
nice.
Great idea.
Yeah,
Stephanie.
that is
Yeah.
nice.
Stephanie,
Very nice.
I think we'll let you keep coming back, babe, because you make good suggestions.
Well, I was looking for different size berries, and you know, it just was. I did the regular padding
And you
that
can-
Suzanne demonstrated, and
Let's see if I can, yeah, and see how it's raised, but not, it's raised more than the others, but not as much as the raised cup stitch.
Right. That's a really good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I like the way that looks.
So Suzanne, I had to leave for a second, but that's the Smyrna cross and then you add the rounded roads on top?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So well, I mean, it would work with I did it with a 3x3 Smyrna, but it would also work if you did a 4x4 over it. It's a 3x3 Rhodes, but it would also work if you did a 4x4 Rhodes over it.
Mm-hmm.
The Smyrna is 2x2.
Would you do 2x2 if you were doing the 4 over it?
Yeah, because it would just flatten out more on the edges and be raised in the center.
Okay.
But that's a really nice round look. Thank you. You have to write that down so I don't forget. Okay. Oops.
All right, Suzanne. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to show us berries, balls, and baubles. I think we all learned something, and thank you, Stephanie, for a great suggestion, because that's an idea I think we'll all hang on to. So,
and thank you, Caroline, for telling me about the raised cup stitch.
Yeah, that was a cool stitch, Caroline. Did you have to do it on your project?
It's in the works.
Got it.
I couldn't figure out how to roll my frame with those big baubles, so it's going to go in last.
Oops. Suzanne, you're muted.
She's muted.
Sorry, I was switching headphones. If you're doing these raised stitches, and you're using a roller frame, you need to do it toward the end because you don't want to roll them in.
Right.
Right.
And if you're moving your stretcher bars, you also need to do them toward the end because you don't want them to get caught up in something else or rolled, because that would flatten them.
Yeah.